everyone, and welcome to another episode of Panther Weekly. I'm Tyler Kuehl alongside Cooper Weidenthaler. We've been talking a lot about sports that have been outside, on the turf, on the pitch. Cooper, it's getting a little cold outside, so let's bring it indoors. Get on the court, and let's talk about some women's volleyball today.
Yeah, women's volleyball, year number 2 under head coach Brian Netzler from right in this area. 11-16 overall last season. They went 6-10 in the GLIAC. And as we actually record this episode, they're on the court right now. So they've been going for a couple weeks. Despite the pandemic, they've been able to get things back going. But started the season not well last year, 2-10. Before they went 9-6 to finish the year. So a rough start under a new head coach. Now, obviously nothing that you want to see from a guy that was just hired, but Brian was able to kind of right the ship, get his ways instilled into his roster, and they finished with that 9-6 stretch. Just missed a GLIAC tournament bid. So an up and down first season, looking for more in that second season. But a new head coach, it takes some time to get what you want across to your girls and start recruiting your own athletes and get that all across.
Right, because a lot of the players, a lot of the big name players that came in last year's team and even the year before that, they were recruited by the previous regime. So having Coach Netzler come in and kind of institute his style, which obviously the girls, when they get recruited, they kind of see how the old coaches work. So now having to kind of change track with the new coach, there is that adjustment period. The Panthers, though, were able to figure it out. They had a couple of real good players, a couple of real big names that were a part of it. Obviously, Hayley Kreiger, the sophomore, was outstanding. And, of course, on the back end defensively, they had Sammy White, who was, and both of them, Cooper, were named all GLIAC last season.
Yeah, Hayley Kreiger, which we will talk a lot about. She comes back to play. She's still only a junior. She was first team all GLIAC last season. You mentioned Sammy White. We lost her to graduation. She was here with this program for 5 years and is one of the program's best setters that it's ever seen. And she finished 4th in the program's career record book for total assists and also 4th in assists per set. So one of the best to ever come through here. And once you get to that 5th year, people really start to look up to you. You know, you become kind of the mom of the team, and people really start to look after what you're doing. So Sammy White is gone. She graduated. Also graduating was Charlie Smith, and those two combined to play over 200 matches in their career. So you lose a lot of experience with those two, but that's it. You know, it's good that only one of those players in Sammy was an everyday player, and it wasn't a big loss. So, yeah, those two are gone from this program, and we'll get to Hayley a little bit later.
Yeah. Sammy ended up totaling in her career at Davenport 2,641 assists. That sounds like a lot, especially given the fact that some of these matches go like 5 sets and they go for so many rounds. It ends up like wearing on you, and like you play volleyball sometimes, even I do it, my arms get red, let alone Sammy's, who's, played for Davenport, so they're red, but geesh, that's a lot.
Right, not to mention, in her first 3 seasons, Sammy was basically the everyday setter. Last year, Grace Hayes, a freshman, came in, and they kind of split time, and Sammy treated it beautifully. It wasn't me. It was a very team-oriented player, so you're also losing that a steady teammate, and so just a tough loss. But good luck to her, future endeavors. Anyway, setter, you got a big hole to fill there, definitely.
Will be interesting to see. Cooper actually got a chance to talk with Coach Netzler, and who else did you talk to with volleyball?
Hayley.
You got to talk to Hayley Kreiger.
Plenty of Hayley Kreiger so far.
All Hayley Kreiger so far talking about that. Let's go to the interview now with Cooper and Coach Netzler and Hayley Kreiger.
Cooper Weidenthaler with Davenport Athletics, and we're talking women's volleyball today. I'm joined by second-year head coach Brian Netzler and junior outside hitter from South Haven, Hayley Kreiger. Coach, I'll start with you. What's been your biggest challenge since the kids have come back and you're trying to compete without a fall schedule?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is just, like all of us are feeling, is just try to stay as safe and as healthy as possible. It's unprecedented times, and it's just we've got to take extra caution and extra measures just to make sure that we're doing the right things, and it means quite a bit extra on all of us as a staff, and as a even with Hayley and the girls right now with how we have to take care of our equipment afterwards and before. But I think we're doing a pretty good job. I knock on wood and cross my fingers and hold my breath a lot that we're doing the right things, but so far so good.
So without that fall schedule, how have you been able to keep the girls motivated and keep them going and keep them hungry?
I think just playing. Getting back in the gym and getting some sense of normalcy and being able to train and be around their teammates. I think that has been kind of motivation enough thus far. We're only going into week 2 together fully. So I think maybe that'll change in a month if you ask me. I don't know. But I do know that, we've had just a great mindset every single day that we get into the gym. And I've been so pleased with our progress and Our big thing that we've been impressing upon all the girls is just being bold and being okay with making some drastic changes. And if you're going to go for it, go for the gusto. Don't hold anything back. And it seems to be working. Maybe Hayley can attest to that. I don't know. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if and when we do have a spring season, again, everything's up in the air. What are you looking for during that shortened schedule? It's one day at a time, I know, especially when you're starting your coaching career. What do you think that shortened season might look like for you guys?
So right now, it looks like it's going to be about a 2-month season for us, and starting in late February and ending early April. Single round robin for the conference, and then going into conference tournament. It looks like right now the plan is that we're going to have all 12 teams join the conference tournament just to give the best experience possible. I think it's not necessarily a marathon like sometimes it is in the fall, where we get in August and we're training 2-a-days, and then we've got matches all the way past Thanksgiving if we make the NCAA tournament. This year it's kind of more like a sprint. So making sure that we're just healthy, making sure that we're in shape, making sure that we're ready just to get after it. And I really feel like our team is very hungry right now to get back out there and to show what we're capable of. Hayley and all the girls included.
I suppose that's a positive too. They've kind of taken for granted what it's like to play in games and matches. So now when they come back, they're going to be that much more hungry. But I mentioned just your second season. Is there anything you've learned during this pandemic period that has helped you to continue to grow as a head coach?
Well, let me just first say, second season, I think there's a lot that was just learned in general going into second year without a pandemic or with a pandemic. I don't think that really matters. I do feel though, just our ability to communicate. I mean, it's always something that coaches are pressing upon their athletes and their staff. But I do feel like I've been proud of the work that we put in as a group. Sometimes it's not easy when we're having our individual meetings, and then we've got team meetings, and we've got, these different, group meetings and all those kind of things, and on top of classes. But I do feel our girls have really bought into it, and they've done an incredible job with it. And, I think when we first started the pandemic, Abby and I would get on these individual calls, and we'd be like just trying to pull answers and pull, conversation out of people. And by the end of it, it was like, how are we doing? And, 15, 20 minutes is up, and we're getting text messages from the next person that's up on saying, hey, like, Hayley, you got to stop talking. I want to get on my call with the coaches. So I do feel like we've been much more connected. And it's just helped, especially being a second year coach, getting to know the team. It's really helped Abby and myself and our staff just get to know them so much better on a personal level, which means a lot to all of us.
Yeah. So not just you, not just your program, but everybody's going through this. With that, have you tried to collaborate with other coaches? Like, hey, what are you guys doing? Are you guys trying to do this or that? Have you tried to get some from other people? Yeah.
I mean, I think we've got a great group of coaches here just at Davenport. So, we're always bouncing ideas off each other of what we're doing with our teams. Volleyball is a pretty small world when it comes to coaching. So I've got my volleyball tree, you would say. We stay connected quite a bit, and it's coaches kind of from all over the country. So I've got a very good friend who's a Division II head coach down in Oklahoma, and like they're in a completely different world than what we are here in Michigan. My good friend who's the head coach at University of Indianapolis, they're in a different realm than we are. So it's nice to know, like, some people are ahead of us, some people are behind us in this whole come back to play thing. So it's kind of been fun to be able to, see where we're at and what has worked and what hasn't worked. I think the GLIAC coaches in general, I think we're all a pretty close group, considering we're trying to beat each other's brains in every weekend when we play each other. And I think our coaches conference calls have been very productive, and we just want to make sure that we're giving the best experience possible to our athletes, when we are able to finally get an opportunity to play come spring.
Absolutely. Lastly, the biggest one, recruiting. It's an ongoing process. Pandemic, I know it still was ticking, still going. I know you've had some recruits on campus lately, so starting to pick that up a little bit again, in-person wise. So what has recruiting been like during this time and then more recently?
Man, it's wild. I mean, I feel like every time we answer a question, it's like, well, you got to think of it like in non-COVID times, like this is what this would be like, and this is what that would be like. But I know we're all in the same boat. I think we are fortunate enough that we've been able to have quite a few athletes on campus between, the 21 class and the 22 class. It's been a weird fall where like I've got afternoons and evenings off. I got evenings off in the weekdays, and I've got, my Saturdays off where I can actually get out and watch. So my assistant and I have been doing everything we can to get out and watch as much volleyball as we can in person when we're allowed to. It's always been, it's interesting when you go to these places and you got to, figure out how you're going to be able to get into the gym. Our athletic director is going to let you in. Are they not going to let you in? So just a lot of legwork before we get out there. But I would say that it hasn't slowed down for us. We've been kind of foot on the gas and just making sure we're doing our best to continue to, bring great athletes into our program.
Hayley, thanks for being patient. We'll switch over to you. You've already played 2 seasons, and you were all GLIAC both seasons. Honorable mention as a freshman, and then first team as a sophomore. So you're already doing pretty well for yourself. How do you take it to even another level this season and just keep improving? How do you continue to get better?
Well, I have never had an off season before, so I think I'm definitely going to capitalize on this off season and just take it game by game when we start playing and control the controllables. I think especially like I said before, just capitalizing on this off season is huge for me. Before I just kind of got thrown into volleyball, you start the games right away, but having that off season, really focusing on my weaknesses is really going to help me improve my game.
Absolutely. So individually, you want to get better, keep improving. What do your team goals look like, especially if you guys can play this little spring season? What are you guys looking for as a team?
Well, obviously hang that banner, go for that conference title, but I think just especially that we are just going to focus on ourselves, focus on bettering ourselves, working together as a team, which I think right now in the gym we are doing a great job of. Even the newbies, you don't even know they're there, which is great. That's awesome. And I think for next year, because we're not going to get an NCAA tourney, just focusing on that, putting ourselves in a good place for that.
Lastly, you and your teammates, obviously you can't be around each other as much maybe, or can't hang out maybe as much. And if you do, it's so different now. But how have you guys been able to stay in touch during the pandemic? And what's the morale like right now with no matches and no fall season?
Well, right now we're still seeing each other every day, going to practice and lift. So I think that's just a huge added bonus for us that we do still get to see each other. We do get to be around each other. So I think that's a huge plus. And even then we have group chats outside of it. We hang out with each other, COVID safe, all of that good stuff. So we're still hanging out with each other and not taking anything for granted. So especially not getting our fall season, it was a giant question mark. Hey, what are we going to do? Are we going to get our spring season? So I think every day, when we're stepping foot in that gym, just everyone's happy to be there. Everyone's capitalizing on just that opportunity to be there. So I think just everyone's happy. Everyone wants to be there. So it's a great atmosphere.
Cooper, another wonderful interview. You are just getting really good at these.
I mean, we're episode 4. We have to be good by now, right?
Well, in theory, yes. but of course, you got a great talk there with Hayley and Coach Netzler.
Yeah, Coach Netzler, terrific coach, has been kind of all over the map as far as coaching experience, which is good. You want to make a lot of stops, and has quite the resume coming here to Davenport.
Yeah, I mean, he graduated from Grand Valley State. We don't hold that against him.
Nope.
A coach there as well. We don't hold that against him either.
Nope.
But also the fact he also went above the Division II level. He was a volunteer assistant coach at Ole Miss and Miami of Ohio in the MAC. Down there. So he's got Division I experience coming.
And made a stop at Austin P, too.
Austin P, yep, almost forgot about that. And even a little bit of work over there at GRCC as an assistant coach. So he's got a lot of assistant coach, this being his first real big-time Division II, NCAA Division II head coaching job. And like we talked about Cooper before the interview, the way he was able to help turn this team around from a very slow start to really have a good run. I mean, let's be honest, 9 of their wins, Coop, came by 3-0 set victories. And that's still pretty good. I mean, obviously, you will have flair for the dramatic, but when you're able to dominate certain matches, that just shows the poise and the confidence that team has. And I'm curious to see how we go into year number 2 under Coach Netzler.
Absolutely. And I mentioned it kind of before the interview, but a brand new coach, are the players that are on the current roster, are they going to care what you have to say? That's your biggest mission when you get to a program, is you have to instill what you believe and make them believe it. Because if they don't believe it and they don't want to do what you want, nothing's going to work. So that was the biggest challenge for Brian Netzler coming in. And obviously with that 9-6 stretch, he was able to finally kind of turn the tide and get things going back in his direction.
And he's a very up-tempo, very intense coach. He likes, and it's just a little bit of a different style. Once those players buy into that sort of method, it'll really start to carry this team forward. Not just, I mean, they still had a good finish, 4th in the South Division of the GLIAC Conference. I mean, it is a very tough conference with teams like Ferris State and Grand Valley State in it, especially in your own division. So it'll be interesting to see how this team continues to progress. They got a lot of returning players here, a few fresh faces, but it really all starts up at the top with the front hitters, including all GLIAC Hayley Kreiger.
Yeah, so we're going to give you a position-by-position breakdown, and I got a lot of help from Coach Netzler, gave me some good quotes about each player. And, yeah, we start with Hayley Kreiger. Again, has played 2 seasons, has been all GLIAC, both of them. So already quite the resume going into her junior season. So she's a returning starter, your most accomplished attacker, and played all but 2 sets last season. And she led the team in kills per set, and attacks. So above the net, offensively, it was all about Hayley Kreiger. Brian said she continues to grow her game both in the back row and in the front row with more range on her attack, so she continues to be more dynamic. But we'll stick with those attackers. Next up, you've got Kendra DeYoung, transferred over from GRCC prior to last season, and she was a 2-time All-American there. Came here, missed some time last year with an injury, but she was the team's best server. She led the team in aces and was tied for 5th in the conference with 32 aces, so she'll be a valuable asset behind that service line. Next up, Riley Groves, a junior, breakout season last year. As a freshman, didn't play very much. Last year really came along. Brian said she worked her way into a starting role last season with some injuries, and once she was on the floor, couldn't take her off. So she's kind of the glue to the team. I called her the team mom, so someone that leads by example, and definitely did that as she earned her role last year. Halfway through the attackers, next up, Cam Vanderleest. She's a junior. Another sophomore last year that saw a larger role, played in 10 matches. Brian said she's getting reps at both your outside hitter and your right side, so both sides of the court. Said she has the ability to be a shutdown blocker and is a powerful attacker. So she'll probably have a bigger role. Then we've got a sophomore in Kenzie Corstange, another great server. Missed some time with an injury down the stretch as well, but still played in 16 matches with 9 starts. She's a sophomore this year. And then rounding out your attackers is Taylor Rutgers, a freshman. Very successful career in high school. She had over 1,500 kills, 1,100 digs, and her team won 84.5% of its matches. So they saw quite a few wins.
That's quite a few down there at Matawan High School, so just a little south of here in Grand Rapids.
So there's your 6 pin attackers, as Brian calls them. Your outside hitters, your right side hitters. Next up, your middle blockers. I call these the towers in the middle. These are the girls that, if there's an attack in the middle, they've got to shut it down. They're usually your tallest players. Starts with Emmy Webb, a sophomore. As a freshman, she led the team in hitting percentage, was a very efficient attacker, and she hit 283. Brian said, you always know what you're going to get from Emmy. She's a hard worker, competitor, who's working on being a better blocker and attacking off 1 foot behind the setter. So very athletic and tall. Then you've got Megan Herr. She was the team's top blocker as a sophomore. So junior year this year, Brian said that Riley's the team mom while Megan's the team dad, has a no-nonsense mentality, and also a trash talker, which you welcome on your team. You've got to be someone that's aggressive on the court. So you've got Webb and Herr. Then you've got Quinn Koppas. She comes from Ashland. The thing about Quinn is she hasn't played a set yet. She hasn't played a single set of collegiate volleyball. She had an injury and has also had another redshirt year. So she comes in fresh slate for her. And then one of 3 freshmen. We already said one of them. Here's the second. Ava Koistra. She was also very accomplished. Brian has said that when he targets these high schoolers, he wants them to have had success. He wants winners in here. And Ava, very accomplished high schooler, went to Grand Rapids Christian, won a pair of state titles. And Brian said if there's one thing you notice about Ava right away, it's that she will not be outworked. So he wants workers and he wants people that have been successful. So that's your middle blockers. Next up, defensive specialists and liberos. These are usually people that are wearing the different colored jersey. And
the easy ones to notice.
The easy ones to notice. You better notice them. Littles, as Coach Netzler, usually your smaller players. Leading that pack is definitely Nina Rudnitsky. She's a junior this year. She was the main player at libero last year. She was 6th in the GLIAC in digs per set, 9th in total digs. So she's the leader there. Gabi Schellenbarger, one of just 2 seniors, but Gabi's the only player on this roster that has spent 4 seasons with DU. Kendra is a senior, but she transferred in, so this has only been her second season with the program. Gabi has spent all 4 with Davenport, so that's a huge role for her. Again, doesn't see a ton of court time compared to the other players, but you still need that role player, definitely.
Yep.
So Nina and Gabi, and then you've got Kira Lasky. Had plenty of odd injuries last year that kind of plagued her freshman year, Brian said, so she's fighting through some stuff physically, and so she's got a sophomore year coming up. And then you've got a transfer, Stephanie Kalinowski. She rounds out your defensive specialists and liberos, and Stephanie comes from UW Platteville, which is a Division III program, and she played all 30 matches last year, so still plenty of experience coming in, somewhere they do need some experience, and Stephanie Kalinowski might provide that. And lastly, the setters, kind of the engine behind your offense. They set up your attackers, and they kind of make your offense go. And we mentioned losing Sammy White in that position group, which will hurt. She was a 5th-year senior last year, one of the program's all-time best setters. So leading the way will be Grace Hayes, just a sophomore. Split time with Sammy before Sammy kind of took over that role late in the season, but she'll be expected to play a much larger role. Brian said she's been working very hard on her game in practices. She's really excelling in our setter training and finding her middles on offense. So she'll be looked upon for a bigger role. And then you've got Nicole O'Dean, a freshman. So that rounds out your 3 freshmen. She went to Buffalo High School in Minnesota, racked up over 2,000 assists. So another successful player coming in that joins this program. So 3 freshmen, they join Quinn and Stephanie Kalinowski, the transfers. So 5 new players for that roster of 16. But yeah, plenty of new faces, but didn't lose a lot from last season.
No, and that's a real good thing too, is that now the team kind of has an idea under Coach Netzler, and now you're going to have a team that's obviously a little bit older, a little bit more mature too, so they'll be ready for still a very heavy GLIAC schedule if and when we ever get to it. Hopefully we do. Cooper, that was some great analysis.
Thank you so much. We give good player breakdowns.
We? Or just you?
All of us.
Oh, all of us?
Ryan behind the camera.
Ryan does.
Us
Ryan,
too.
Ryan helps us out a little bit.
Don't sell yourself short.
I'm just happy to be here. That's all.
Happy to be making content. That's right.
Happy to be making content. Well, whenever we get to see these great players here at Davenport, hopefully we get to see them soon. Thank you all very much for watching another episode. Oh my God, I almost forgot sponsors. Oh my gosh, almost forgot. We gotta remember Uccello's, of course.
Uccello's,
because of their awesome pizza, their award-winning pizza.
Yep.
According to Ryan Thompson. Of course, we got Chick-fil-A, we have Adidas right behind us here, Meyer, Gazelle Sports, all sorts of great people making this possible for this another episode of Panther Weekly. Once again, folks, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you all next week for another episode of Panther Weekly. For Cooper Weidenthaler, I'm Tyler Kuehl, saying so long and see you next week.